Alright, hello Instagram. I apologize in advance if you can hear the wind. It's a very windy day here. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Hello! Alright, we will get started here. We'll go live on Facebook. And then we'll go live. Hello, hello. Give me a wave. Say hello if you're here. Okay. We got that going. We'll start this video. And we are off. Okay. Hello. And welcome to today's video. Hello. Sister wave. Today's video where we're going to be talking about what it actually means to be following your feelings. Because most of us, what we believe to be following our feelings is actually following instinct, following pattern, following what feels familiar, following what we usually do, following what our minds have conceptualized as being the truth and being what we should be doing and being reality, that we have built up a whole bunch of stories around for a very long time. But we are not actually feeling our feelings, and we are not listening to our feelings, and we are not actually following what our feelings are telling us to do. We are using our minds to validate and justify what we are doing. And we are using our minds to explain our feelings as being like, this is what it is, and this is what I am feeling, when really that's not what's happening, okay? So for most of us, the actual process of feeling our feelings and then following what our feelings are telling us to do is something very different than what most of us think we're doing when we're following our feelings, okay? When we think we're following our feelings. So I am hoping today in this video to bring some clarity to this idea of what it actually means to feel our feelings and to use our feelings as a guide for helping us to understand where we are not seeing reality clearly, where we are working from bias and we are working from conditioning versus working from, again, what our feelings are actually telling us, and learning to use our feelings to help us dissect and move through what our intellect thinks is the truth right now, because our intellect has collected a whole bunch of evidence to support the truth, but our feelings are telling us it is not the truth, okay? Because, again, so much of the time we need to realize that our minds can be pretty much convinced of anything. Our minds can be pretty much convinced that anything is true. And especially in our world today, where we are able to find evidence to support any way of thinking, any way of being, because things can be edited and things can be contextualized and things can be boiled down enough that it makes it look like we have evidence to support a belief, evidence to support that something is true. But because the context has been so taken out of context and things have been so whittled down and we're not actually having an experience of the things that we think that we know, we can be led to believe that this is true and this is true and this is true, when real reality is showing us that it is not. Or, again, we are so disconnected from real reality that we're not experiencing what we think we know to be true. And therefore we think it's true, and it isn't. Okay? And our feelings are here to help us really understand the difference between, okay, I have an intellectual understanding of this thing and intellectual reasons why it might be true. But in real reality, in my real experience, in what I actually feel, the information is different. And then learning to trust real reality more than we trust our intellect. That's what this is really about. So again, it's not about getting rid of our intellect. It's not about not thinking. It's not about not having logic and reason. Okay? We're not black and whiting this. Logic and reason and our minds are very important. And they help put things in order. And they help us to make sense of this world that we're living in. That is oftentimes very confusing. But it shouldn't be the only thing we rely on. Right? And our culture is very much all about the mind being first, the mind being the main thing, intellect being the only thing that matters. And this is part of what separates us from reality. This is part of what gets us into trouble. This is part of what leads to these big systems that we have, that we all participate in, that don't work, that we explain away. And all of the things that kind of happen especially on the internet, and we're arguing with each other over what's real and what isn't, and what's true and what isn't, and everyone has a different idea. Because we're all having different experiences, but also because a lot of us aren't living from real experience. We're living from information we're getting from other people or information we're getting in little snippets. And we're using our minds to create a picture that might have nothing to do or very little to do with real reality. Okay? And so again, like if you're interested in this work and you're liking this material, again, I just really want to let you know that like this, if you're wondering what we work on in the mystery school, if you're wondering why I keep talking about the mystery school so much, it's because this is what we're doing in the mystery school, right? This work of learning to be kind and compassionate with ourselves, learning to slow down, learning to be on our own side is not just so that we can have nice inner dialogue, although that is a part of it and it is important and it changes things and it's very, very helpful. The real path of this self-love work is to help us get out of those shame, blame, and guilt stories, right? That keep us stuck in our intellect and in our patterns and in the ways of thinking and the ways of being that are not working for us, so that we can start to expand beyond them and to connect with real reality. These two things are so inherently connected. Is how we are treating ourselves, how we are moving past our shame, blame, and guilt, is how we then start to figure out what real reality is, versus just constantly acting from this place of trigger and I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy. We start to be able to say, okay, what is actually happening here? What's really going on? What's the actual reality that I'm living? What are my feelings actually telling me if they're not telling me I'm a piece of shit and that everything is my fault and I'm the worst, or that I'm helpless and there's nothing I can do? Right? When we go beyond that, we can start to see what real reality is. And this is how we become good problem solvers. This is how we tap into our empathy and our capacity to see what is helpful for us and what is helpful for the world around us. This is how we start to untangle our purpose from just what we can contribute to capitalism to our whole humanity. And it's so much bigger than just being nice to ourselves. Okay? So that's why the mystery school is so long and there's so much in there. Because working through these shame, blame, and guilt stories is really difficult. And learning to actually feel your real feelings, which is what we're going to talk about today, is not an easy process. So I'm going to give you the tools and understandings and hopefully some like seeds to help you understand what this is today. But I want you to understand that like that's what the school is for. It's there to help you break out of the patterns of not being able to feel your feelings and not being able to actually listen to your real feelings, because it is a pattern, right? It's a way of being, and it's really challenging to change it. And so that's what the school is there to help you do. And then when we do that, we can start to see reality for how it actually is. And this changes everything. It changes the entire way that we react to ourselves and to the world. And that is, again, like how we change the world. It's how we start to find our place in the collective and figure out what we can do to make things better for everyone. It's not just about making life better for ourselves. So that's just, I wanted to just say that. If you want to go deeper with this work, please check out the Mystery School. Check out one-on-one coaching with me. I have lots of other YouTube videos. I have lots of other blogs. Like, I have so much information and content out there that hopefully you can find something for you that works for you and where you're at in your life. Okay, that's that. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand when we're talking about actually feeling our feelings is the idea that when something feels like shit in our bodies, there is something about it that isn't true. Okay? Now that doesn't mean that the whole thing that we're thinking isn't true. That doesn't mean that the opposite of what we're thinking is true. That does not mean that sometimes in real reality, when we see real reality for how it actually is, that there isn't going to be pain within that. Okay? Sometimes things are genuinely painful to see. They're genuinely sad. They're genuinely bringing us anger. They're genuinely hurtful in some way. So it's not to say that real reality is never painful, or that real reality always feels good, in the sense that it feels joyful. Okay? That's not what I'm saying. We do have to understand that there are times and places in life when we lose someone that we really love, when we go through a heartbreak, when we witness atrocities happening, that of course those things don't feel good. But there's a level when we are connected to real reality where we can say, okay, it makes sense that I'm feeling sad right now. It makes sense that I'm feeling anger right now. It makes sense that I'm witnessing injustice and that I'm upset about that. And when we are connected to real reality and we are feeling something painful, we are going to notice that what does not occur is the spiraling, looping, this is all my fault, I am the worst, I am the cause of this, I'm completely out of control, I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling, right? The shame, blame, and guilt, when we are connected to real reality, will not be there. Rather, there will be an experience of, no, yeah, my emotional reaction to this makes perfect sense. And then there will be a feeling of, okay, where do I find my power within this? Where do I have capacity to take steps, to do something, to support myself, or to support those that I'm watching who are suffering in whatever way I can, right? So I might not be able to make the war stop. I might not have the capacity to completely alter the thing that's happening, but I can do something. And we are going to find our power, the thing we can actually do, within our individual circumstance or the bigger thing that we're looking at. We're going to take that step, and then we're going to allow ourselves to process our emotion, right? There's going to be that clean sadness, clean anger, clean resentment, whatever it is that we're feeling. Usually it's in the other way, right? We first process our emotion, And rather than feeling shame, blame, and guilt, rather than looping and spiraling in the what am I doing wrong, how can I fix this, how is this all my fault, how is this all my responsibility, we allow ourselves to feel our anger, we allow ourselves to feel our sadness, we allow ourselves to feel our injustice or whatever it is that we feel. And then we look for where our power is, we take our step, and then we comfort ourselves in whatever it is we can't change. Okay? So that's how we handle a real life situation where real reality sucks and doesn't feel good. There's not shame, blame, and guilt. There's not, I am responsible for this whole thing. There's not, I can't make the whole thing better, so therefore I can't do anything. Yes? There's a, my emotions make sense. I process my emotions. I take the step I'm capable of taking. And then I comfort myself and support myself in whatever is left that I can't fix or change. That is what happens when we are really, truly connected to real reality. A real reality that doesn't feel good. So like I said, what's not in there is just looping and looping and looping and looping in our thoughts. What's not in there is beating ourselves up, telling ourselves how horrible we are, telling ourselves how everything is our fault, telling ourselves how we are to blame for everything, and if we can't totally fix it, that we're completely helpless. Right? We step out of the black and white thinking, out of the childhood reasoning that everything is our faults, that we're completely powerless, that our emotions are wrong, that we shouldn't feel how we feel. That's the difference. Right? That's what connecting to real reality feels like. I process my emotion. My emotion makes sense. It's not blame and shame and guilt. We take the steps we're capable of taking, right? Even if we find out, like, whoa, my pain is sort of being caused by things that I am doing. In real reality, we are always going to figure out, well, yeah, but that makes sense. It makes sense that I got there. It makes sense that that's what I was doing. I can see why I believe that. I can see why I have these patterns and these actions. It's not because I'm just a piece of shit, or because I'm just broken, or because there's something wrong with me. I can see where my patterns came from. I can have compassion for myself. I'm not going to use that as an excuse to stay this way and to keep causing harm to myself or others, but I can see that there was a reason. And then I look for, how do I support myself to do something different, right? Both and. That's what it feels like to connect to a painful reality in real reality. Okay, now, next point. What most of us think we're doing when we're feeling and then following our feelings, again, is we are connecting to a thought we've always thought, right? I'm in pain because I'm not good enough. I'm struggling because I suck. There's something wrong with me. There's something broken with me. I am the exception to the self-love rule. I am the one who shouldn't be loved. I am the one who's really just the cause of all my own problems. That if I was different and if I was better, my whole life would be different and better. Right? We think these thoughts. I'm not loved. I'm not safe. I'm not worthy. It's all my fault. Here's what's wrong with me. I wouldn't be in this situation if I wasn't so X, Y, and Z. Right? And we feel that in the body. And we go, okay, I'm feeling my feelings. And this feels terrible. It doesn't feel good. It feels heavy. It feels contracting. It feels like a weight. And then you hear someone say, okay, you're feeling your feeling. How does it feel? And what most people say to me when they're thinking a shitty thought about themselves and how they need to improve themselves and how this is their fault. And they feel that heaviness, they feel that weight, they feel that yucky feeling inside. Whatever it is for you. And I ask them, okay, how does that thought feel? And the first thing they always say to me, in pretty much every single one of my coaching sessions, is it feels true. And I say, okay, so it feels light and freeing and expansive and energizing and empowering. And they're like, no. It feels heavy and dense and like I have to fix myself and like I have to go and do my habits over and over and over again. I have to go and I have to get on that diet. I have to get on that discipline. I have to change the way that I'm doing things because I'm failing at life and I suck and all of these things. And I go, okay, so what you're telling me is that you're feeling your feelings, and the worse it feels, the heavier something feels in your body, the worse something feels, the more true you think it is. Right? This is usually where people are at when they're saying, I'm feeling my feelings and I'm following my feelings. So I think this horrible thought about myself. It feels awful in my body. And the more awful it feels, the more true it is. The more I have felt this feeling before, the more true it is. Which means now I'm going to think about how I'm going to improve myself, how I'm going to fix myself, what's wrong with me, what's broken with me. And then that feels terrible. Or that feels, for most people, right, when they start to feel that horrible, heavy feeling of that terrible thought they're thinking, they then start thinking about all the ways that they're going to engage in their self-help, their self-improvement, their spirituality, whatever it is, that's going to fix them. And it feels buzzy and light and energizing, and this is the answer, and it's going to change my whole life. I want to know, does this resonate with you? Have you ever had this go on? Right? You think a thought, it feels awful in your body, and you go, yep, that's that feeling of what something is true feels like. Awful. And I've thought this a million times. And then I'm now thinking about the self-help thing that I'm going to do, the spirituality thing that I'm going to do, the self-improvement thing I'm going to do, that's going to fix me. It's going to change this. I'm just going to get on track. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to stop being this way. I'm going to heal. This is what's wrong with me. This is what caused it. This is what I did wrong. I ate all the wrong foods. I thought all the wrong thoughts. I was just lazy. I'm just terrible and awful and broken. And here's my plan for how I'm going to fix it. And it feels really buzzy and like it's going to change your whole life, even if you've done it a million times. You've done it a million times before. It's never actually worked. It's worked for a little bit. It's made you feel better for a little bit. And that's all the evidence you need that it works if you could just stick to it. You get all excited. You run down that path. And you think, I just followed my feelings. I thought a thought, it felt awful, so therefore it was true. I felt all buzzy with the thing that I was going to do to fix it, so that was me following my feelings. I followed the buzzy feeling, and that was me following my feelings. Right? I want to hear from you. Have you ever had that experience? Is that what you think following your feelings is? Because most of the time, in my sessions, with most people that I've talked to, that is the process. Right? And then they follow that thing. They do what they're going to do to try to fix themselves. They can do it for a week. They can do it for 2 weeks. They fall off. It stops working. It doesn't feel good anymore. They quit. They go back into their pattern. They feel terrible about themselves. They think the thought, I'm awful, I'm the reason, I'm just terrible, it feels awful. They figure out their self-help thing they're going to do, they feel buzzy, they go off, and it's just that over and over and over and over again. And people then are going, I'm following my feelings. You're telling me, Aaliyah, that if I follow my feelings, I'm going to find my steps, I'm going to find my progress, and I just keep looping. I tend to still fall for that fizzy feeling and confuse that with my intuition talking to me. Yep. Right? And we think we're following our feelings. We think we're doing it right. And then we're just like, well, so then why am I still stuck in my patterns? Why am I just looping and looping and looping and not getting anywhere? Yeah, fuzzy. Yeah, totally. Fuzzy, buzzy, fizzy. It's all the same. I think I like your word, fizzy. I feel like that's a really accurate description. Because what that is following instinct. That's following pattern. That's following what I call consensus reality, pain and pleasure, versus real reality, pain and pleasure. Right? Yes, bubbly, exactly. Consensus reality tells us that the reason we are in pain is because we suck. Consensus reality tells us that the way to liberation is to fix our broken selves, to take responsibility for yourself, to look at that blame, shame, and guilt, and to be like, yes, that is true. The reason my life sucks is because I suck. The reason I am in pain is because I am broken. I am shitty. And if I just take enough responsibility for myself, if I hate myself enough, if I figure out what's wrong with me, and I fix myself to be more in alignment with my conditioning, with what I've been told will make me lovable and good enough, that is the solution to my problems. That is consensus reality. Follow your conditioning, follow culture, make yourself better based on what you learned from your caregivers you have to do and be and become in order to be loved by them. And that is how you are going to find freedom. And we feel that light, buzzy, fizzy, bubbly feeling when we get on our self-improvement path, when we buy our new workout set, when we, sign up for the 30-day transform your whole life with these transcendental meditations program. And we do it over and over and over and over again, trying to make ourselves more productive, trying to make ourselves smaller, trying to make ourselves prettier, trying to make ourselves richer, trying to make ourselves more something in the consensus reality. And then we do that over and over and over and over again. Chasing the never enough culture. Chasing whatever we learned or believed in our childhoods from our caregivers who were not able to be secure connections for us, if that was your experience. We kept trying to figure out, what do I need to do and what do I need to be, so that my caregivers will finally pay attention to me, will finally give me that safety and that love and that connection that I am craving. What is wrong with me that they are not giving that to me? And then we take that out into the world, into our adult lives, and we constantly live this life of shame, blame, and guilt. I am the reason I don't feel good. I am the reason I don't have the love I want. I am the reason I don't have the security and the connection and the safety that I want. It's because I suck and I'm bad and I'm broken. And again, most of us don't even realize that that's what we're chasing. Most of us don't even realize that that's why we feel like shit. Like, we are very convinced that it's like, no, I just need to lose weight, because if I was thinner, everything would be better. And we're not even questioning why that is, we think that's true. Right? And again, there's a level in real reality of actually not having enough. Right? Like, where we don't have enough money or stability or safety to actually feel good and secure in life. That is a real reality. But again, if we're connecting to that in real reality, we are not going to be sitting there saying, because I am a piece of shit. I don't have enough because I am terrible. I don't have enough because I am weak or lazy or undeserving or not worth it, or because I suck and I'm not taking enough responsibility for myself or whatever. When we're really truly connecting with real reality and witnessing that we don't have enough, we're going to see that systemically and holistically, right? How is it that the system is not set up to support everyone having enough? How is it that you weren't set up to have success in the system? How is it that you are trying your best and it's just hard for you because you're neurodiverse or you're chronically ill or you have things going on? There's always going to at least be a level of being able to be compassionate with yourself, that it's not all your fault and you aren't just horrible and lazy and awful and broken and that's why you don't have enough, right? And even if you recognize and see that there's systemic issues that are contributing to you not having enough, that doesn't mean that you are then hopeless or helpless or can't do anything about it. It just means that you can understand that it doesn't just come down to you being shitty and undeserving. You can understand that we don't have a system that values humanity. So a lot of us fall through the cracks, and that's not our fault. And so even if we have to do things that are really hard and really challenging in order to have enough, we're at least not coming from a place of self-blame and shame and guilt that I don't have enough because I don't deserve it. Because that's cultural conditioning. The idea that anyone deserves to work a full day and not have enough to make ends meet because they're low-skill jobs is bullshit. That is cultural conditioning that we have all bought so that those who have the most power and the most money can continue to accumulate for themselves at the expense of everyone else, and we blame everyone else instead of them, and we don't demand a better system. Okay? So again, this is nuanced and this is complex. It doesn't mean we have no power. It doesn't mean we just say, well, it's the system, so there's nothing I can do. But we have to be able to recognize where things are not our fault, and how it's not because we are not worthy of love, or that we are not worthy of care, or that we are just shitty people who should be treated like shit. When we're lonely and we don't have connection, and we start to recognize that it's like, yeah, I was like really traumatized in my childhood, and it totally messed up the way that I do relationships. You can be sad that you don't have the connections that you want. You can be sad that you then have like things that you do in your socializing that are maybe not healthy and that do lead to you not having the connections that you want. That there are parts of it that, right, you're playing a role because you're carrying on these things, but you don't have shame, blame, and guilt about it because you realize that you didn't choose that. You didn't do that to yourself. That you were hurt. You weren't given the skills. You weren't given the tools. So you can be sad for yourself and you can grieve for that. And then you can look for support for how you can heal and how you can start to change your patterns and change your ways of being. Not from a place of shame, blame, and guilt and trying to fix what's wrong with you, but looking to give yourself the support you never had, right? Those are two very different things. Looking to give yourself the support you never had so that you can start to do things differently is very different than I'm just shitty and bad at relationships for no reason and I need to fix myself. You see? So back to the following our feelings. when we feel like something feels like shit in our bodies. This is the hardest part. Again, this is why the mystery school is 4 years long. Because learning to just do this is one of the hardest things most of us will ever do. Interrupting this pattern of I'm thinking a thought, it feels awful, and then that's what makes me believe it. And then I look for that buzzy feeling and I follow that. Most of us are doing that so unconsciously, so subconsciously, that we're already 10 steps down the fuzzy feeling road before we even recognize what we're doing, before we even notice or come online to feel a feeling. Because it's so automatic in consensus reality to feel pain, to look for how it's my fault, to look for that horrible feeling, to look for the buzzy thing, and then to go down that path. That is the childhood coping mechanism, that is the childhood reasoning that we all got, that then is perpetuated by culture. So that literally, it's like automatic. We don't even notice that we're doing it. We don't even notice that we felt that pain. Right? So this process of learning to feel our feelings is we want to be able to come online at some point and notice, am I feeling that buzzy feeling? That bubbly feeling? Is this thing that I'm wanting to do feeling like grounded, peaceful, empowering, expanding? Or does it feel like this is going to change my whole life, buzzy, oh my God, this is it? That feeling. Okay? Because when we are on to a truth, when we are on to something that is really going to help us, it feels grounding in our nervous systems. Right? There can be a level of excitement and a level of like, yeah, I really want to do that. But it's not going to feel buzzy. It's not going to feel bubbly. It's not going to feel like it's going to change your whole life. It's going to actually feel relaxing, calming, grounded. Yes, okay, yes. That's how it feels when we notice something that is actually right for our path. And then when we notice that we're on that bubbly feeling, if we can notice the high, that's when we can trace ourselves back to what was I thinking before this that felt really awful. Because we can almost guarantee that there was going to be something before that bubbly feeling. Something that caused you to chase that bubbly feeling that felt awful, right? And we have to understand that that bubbly feeling is taking you away from that painful, heavy, awful feeling that none of us want to feel. When we think a thought that isn't true and it's shame, blame, and guilt, it feels awful. So it makes perfect sense that all we want is the thing that gives us that bubbly feeling, because it's relief from that awful, terrible, heavy feeling. Okay? So again, are you following me? Does this resonate with your experience at all? Right? You felt that awful, I am shitty, I am broken, I am the reason for my pain feeling. It felt terrible in your body. You believed it, and then all you want is that bubbly, buzzy, fuzzy, high thing that's going to take you away from that feeling. And then we chase that and chase that and chase that. And sometimes we accomplish the thing that the buzzy feeling was leading us to. We lose the weight. We find the partner. We accomplish the thing in our job. We get ourselves on track and we have the perfectly organized apartment or whatever it is that we were thinking. If I can just get myself to be this way, we suppress our coping mechanisms, right? So we don't engage in our behavior for a week or 2 weeks. And we feel really proud of ourselves. But then, instead of feeling amazing, we accomplished the thing. We got there. We didn't do our behavior. We stopped ourselves from doing our behavior, or we got ourselves on track and we did it. Rather than feeling amazing, what actually occurs is that deep, dark, gnawing, yucky feeling comes up. And now we've achieved the thing. We did it. We lost the weight. We cleaned the apartment. We no longer have the thing that we can blame that feeling on. This is what's wrong with me, and if I just fix it, this feeling will go away. Because we haven't engaged in our behavior. Or we fixed the thing. We accomplished the thing. And now we're like, oh shit. I'm still feeling this awful, horrible feeling. But I no longer have my magical solution that if I could just get there, I'm promising myself I'll never feel this way again. I got there. I achieved it. I did it. And I still feel this way. Do you understand what I'm saying? Have you ever had that experience? I didn't engage in my coping self-sabotage numbing behavior. But I still feel this heavy feeling inside. I got on track, but I still feel this heavy feeling inside. So now what? And then you sabotage yourself. Right? You gain the weight back, you fall off the cleaning schedule, you do whatever. And now all of a sudden you feel that shitty feeling. It's okay. I can get back on track. And that'll fix it. Even though last time you were on track. Last time you didn't engage in your behavior. You felt this way anyways. Do you see what I'm saying? Have you had this experience? Because what we're really feeling when we feel that awful shame, blame, and guilt, that feeling we think is true, right? That we're thinking the thought, I am shitty, I need to do this, I am the reason for my pain. It feels awful. And the worse it feels, the more true we think it is. That is actually just a distraction from what we're actually feeling. So we want to be able to pause and be like, whoa, okay. This awful feeling, this heavy, dark, clenchy, I am not good enough, I am not worthy, I am the reason everything is terrible in my life. That is the sign that I've disconnected from reality. It feels super true. I have all of these thoughts that I've thought for my whole life that justify that I am feeling this way because I am shitty. This is what's wrong with me, and this is what I need to fix about myself so that I can feel better. That's where most of us are at. We're stuck there. Because we're not able to stay with that shitty feeling and be like, okay, the reason this thought feels so terrible is because something about it isn't true. And usually, right, if you're in a coaching session with me or you're doing your work in the mystery school or you're knowing how to do this on your own, that's when we go, okay, what is that thought telling you? Right? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm shitty, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm broken. And what I'm going to ask you is if that shame, blame, and guilt story, that you are in pain because there's something wrong with you, is not true, what are you actually feeling? And that is where most people are like, whoa, what? Right? I can question shame, blame, and guilt. It might be that I'm feeling a feeling that isn't because I am shitty and I am wrong and I am broken and I am to blame and there's something wrong with me. And if we challenge ourselves to stay with that feeling and be like, what if this isn't shame, blame, and guilt? What if shame, blame, and guilt are never actually true? So what if what I'm feeling is not telling me that I'm broken and bad and wrong and terrible? What are you actually feeling? That's when people can start to be like, okay, well, I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really lonely. I'm feeling unsafe. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling unloved. I'm feeling like love just went away. Like I just got rejected and now I'm not going to be okay. And we can start to get into what you're actually feeling. And that's when I'm talking about we can connect with the real experience that happened to you or that is happening to you, that is making you feel uncomfortable in real reality. Because shame, blame, and guilt, you are never in pain because you are bad, wrong, broken, horrible, need to fix yourself. This is what we start to discover when we really challenge ourselves to be with our feelings and question our feelings. You feel that awful, terrible, clenching, down, it feels true because I've thought it a million times, shame, blame, and guilt thought. And what that is the childhood coping mechanism, consensus reality. Feeling a feeling of being unloved, being unsafe, not getting your needs met, not knowing how to express yourself, wanting to express a part of yourself that you've been constantly rejected about, having a situation in your life that you don't know how to deal with. That's what's really going on. But the second we feel that pain, it's so automatic. Our childhood self, our consensus reality self, our programming kicks in immediately and looks for what's wrong with me, what did I do wrong, how am I broken, how am I shitty, so that I can then figure out how to fix myself so that this pain will go away. That's what shame, blame, and guilt are always doing for us. Our shame, blame, and guilt stories are, I'm feeling pain that I don't know how to deal with. And my shame, blame, and guilt stories are there to try to figure out what's wrong with me that's causing this pain. Yes, because that's the childhood reasoning. That's how we learned to figure things out as children. When we had no control over our environment, when we didn't understand how anything worked, when our caregivers were gods to us. From our childhood perspective, the only reason we would be in pain is because we're doing something wrong. Our caregivers are not caring for us, they're not connecting with us, they're not giving us what we want or taking away the things we don't want. Because we are doing something wrong. So the shame, blame, and guilt is there to be like, figure out what you're doing wrong so you can change it, so then you can then feel better. The people around you will respond to you differently. But in real reality, That's not how we fix it as adults. So we go on our self-help, self-improvement, spirituality thing, trying to fix ourselves, and we loop round and round and round and round, and it never works. Even when we accomplish it, it never actually feels better. Because we're not getting at the root of what we're feeling and what we actually need. So how can I fix this situation? Meaning how to mold behavior or response to the situation so that to bring out the desired outcome, but at the cost of compromising my truth. Exactly. Right? And that's what kind of like codependency is. If I change myself enough, you will then understand and empathize with what I need and what I want, and you will meet my need for me. Instead of me figuring out what I need and me figuring out what I want as an adult and being able to ask for it, I need to figure out what it is that you want from me so that you will approve of me, so that you will figure out what my need is and meet it for me. That's the childhood reasoning. So we stop ourselves at that horrible, painful, this feels awful feeling. So we can go, what's the shame, blame, and guilt story? And then we question the shame, blame, and guilt story so that we can finally understand what it is we're actually feeling. Abandoned, alone, scared, insecure. My needs aren't being met. I want to express something that I don't know how to express. Something in my environment doesn't feel good for me. I have a pattern of behavior that I was taught that's not giving me the real results that I want, but I don't know any other way to be. That's feeling your feelings. Do you see how different that is? I felt that awful, contracting, horrible, shitty feeling, and instead of running with it, I questioned it. The shame, blame, and guilt is always a lie. But even being able to recognize that you're working from shame, blame, and guilt is a huge job. Because most of us don't even recognize that that's what that is. Because we think the self-help, the self-improvement, the taking responsibility for yourself is the right answer. Because it feels so much better than that horrible, shitty, sinking feeling that I'm a piece of crap. But we don't know how to question the I'm a piece of crap thoughts. Because those just feel so real to us. That just seems like the only thing it could be. Right? And we can look at our behavior and be like, yeah, but look, I'm doing all of these things that are clearly causing a problem. It's like, yeah, sure, you might have these habits that really do cause a problem. But it's not because you suck. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're broken or bad or there's something wrong with you. That's an adaptation. That's what you did to try to get your need met in the best way you know how. So we need to remove the shame and the blame and the guilt from your habits so that you can understand how they're meeting your needs, where they're filling in the gaps of you not being met and loved and supported and connected the way you needed to be. Because that's what's really happening. So I fear abandonment, not being seen, and not getting connection. Exactly. And really, at the end of the day, this is what all of us are going to pretty much discover is actually at the root of all of our shame, blame, and guilt. We got triggered by feeling abandoned. We got triggered by not having enough and automatically connecting that with us being shitty and undeserving and doing something wrong. And then we do our coping mechanisms, we do our numbing, we do our self-sabotage. And we think that's the problem. If I could just stop habit, or if I could just get on track with goal, everything would be fixed. because we're not recognizing that that's consensus reality. The coping mechanism is not the reason you're in pain. It's how you're coping with your pain. The getting on track is usually not going to bring you the love and the connection and the safety that you think that it's going to. We have to be able to walk it back to what we actually want and what we actually need and what we're actually feeling, right? And then that leads us to grieving our childhoods, realizing where we didn't get the secure connection that we needed, realizing where we were hurt, harmed, abandoned, and abused, and doing the work to figure out how do we support ourselves now as adults who need to change our patterns and change our ways of thinking and get our needs met in new ways. And that's the real self-love process. But in order to get there, right? And then that's what I'm saying. That's when we're going to find tools and support and things that feel grounding. Steps that we can take that feel good in our nervous systems. They don't feel buzzy. They don't feel bubbly. They don't feel like they're going to change your whole life. They feel like that is my next right step. That is a thing I actually need. That is a thing that is actually going to make me feel better. Because it's supportive of who I am and what I need right now as a human being. It's not going to fix what's broken with me. It's going to give me something that meets my needs in a way that they are not being met right now and in a way that they were not met in my childhood. There's a huge difference from when we figure out the step that actually feels good. Because that step is going to feel supportive of who you are. It's not going to feel like it's going to change you into someone different so that you will finally be good enough. It's working from a place of like, no, I deserve love and support for the me that exists right now. And this feels supportive for the me that exists right now. It's not going to fix what's broken with me. It's going to support me in a way I was never supported before. And it will be because we didn't follow the path of shame, blame, and guilt. It's because we challenged that shame, blame, and guilt story. So again, when it feels like shit inside your body, your mind is going to want to say, the more it feels like shit, the more true it is. Because the mind can be convinced of anything. But in real reality, the more it feels contracting and like you're terrible and everything is your fault, and if you just fix yourself, you will feel better, the less true it is. So then we need to ask ourselves, what am I really feeling if I'm not feeling shame, blame, and guilt? I'm feeling abandoned. I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling like I don't have my needs met. I'm feeling unsafe. I'm feeling disrespected. I'm feeling like someone did something to me that didn't feel good. I don't have my needs met. I want to express something, but I'm afraid because I've been indoctrinated my whole life that I can't. I'm being forced to do something that I really don't want to do. And I'm telling myself that I'm terrible, that I don't want to do it, instead of maybe I'm being forced to do something I shouldn't be doing. That isn't actually good. And it's not my fault. I'm not broken for not wanting to do it. And then we start to say, okay, now how can I meet myself where I'm at and figure out what I need to feel supported? So again, even if that means changing our habits or doing something different, because what we're doing to cope with our pain really does cause more pain, there should be no shame, blame, or guilt in that. It should not be anymore, oh, I'm doing this because I'm a piece of shit. It's like, oh no, I'm doing this because, like, obviously, this is how I got my need met. This is the only way I knew how to get my need met. I communicate in this toxic way because that's how I learned to communicate. Not because I'm bad, wrong, and broken. Okay, so now how do I learn new ways of communicating that will work better? Right? We change from a place of self-support versus changing from a place of I'm shitty and broken and wrong for no reason. So do you see how different that is from what most of us are doing when we think we're following our feelings? Following that buzzy, fuzzy, fizzy feeling is not following your feelings. Feeling something that feels terrible inside your body and assuming that it's true because you've felt it before and it feels really real because it's familiar is not what following your feelings is. That's consensus reality. That's conditioning. That's following shame, blaming, guilt, and childhood reasoning. Yeah? We have to slow down. We have to feel that awful feeling and let that be the trigger. Okay, I'm thinking something that isn't true. So where's the shame, blaming, guilt in this? And how can I question that shame, blaming, guilt story to get at the actual pain that I'm feeling? And then how can I start to address the actual pain? Because the thing that triggers the shame, blame, and guilt is always pain. Something happened, we were in pain, and the childhood coping reasoning mechanism said, I'm in pain because there's something wrong with me, so what do I need to do to fix it? So what's the pain? What are you actually feeling? Abandonment, shame, abandonment, rejection, not safe, being forced to do something you don't want to do, that you've been indoctrinated is the right thing and you have to be that way, not being allowed to do the thing you really want to do, not getting your needs met. That's what we want to look for. So then we can look for, how do we support you? What are the steps you can take that feel grounded and nourishing and supportive of the being you are, that make it so that you it makes sense that I am the way that I am. I can understand why I developed these habits. And again, we don't use that as an excuse to keep doing it. We use that as a explanation so that we don't feel shame, blame, and guilt about it anymore. We're like, okay, no, it makes sense that I am this way. Now, how do I support myself? And a lot of the time, again, what needs to happen in there is the grieving process. We have to get mad at our caregivers. We have to get mad at culture. We have to let ourselves go through that messy emotional phase, which is a huge part of what we walk through in the mystery school, because it is hard. It is hard to blame our caregivers. It is hard to get mad at these people. It is hard to not just shame, blame, and guilt ourselves, and to get mad at what actually needs to get mad at, what deserves our anger, what deserves our sadness. It's hard to do that. It goes against every single instinct we have from the childhood self, and that's why we do all the other work of building the adult perspective and building the witness perspective, right? This is not easy work. There are layers to it. But I hope that this helps bring some awareness around that. And again, this is why the mystery school is so long. This is why we do one-on-one coaching. This is because there are many parts to this process. It's not so simple and easy. You can't just, put it in a video or put it in a book. Otherwise, I would have. I swear, if I could make it simpler, I would. So that's that. Okay? So let me know in the comments what you thought. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you want me to talk about. Come join the mystery school. Watch a lot of these videos. Just keep flooding yourself with this information. Look for other teachers. Look for other guides that are saying similar things, that maybe say it in a different way that I say it, that resonates with you better. I'm not the only one. How can you support yourself? It has to be the foundation. Okay? If it feels like shit, no matter how familiar it feels, it's not true. There's more there. So can we question it? That's my offering and my challenge and my question of the day. Okay? Okay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. And until then, goodbye.